Greetings from Castle Goring from Mickey, Aurora, Treasure, and from me. Treasure has rallied. Unfortunately, it's most likely going to be temporary. I know that a lot of you have been asking about Treasure, so I am showing Treasure. Hopefully not for the last time, but one needs to be prepared. So he has rallied a bit. He's been hydrated and given all sorts of things, and he's much more his old self. But I'm not so sure. So the less said about it at this point, the better. But Treasure has been cuddling very much with his Motty Boo of late. And I am delighted to have my Treasure cuddling with me. So without further ado, with Treasure by my side and his tail in the way, and I'm stroking him as we speak, I am going to plunge right in because I have some juicy gossip for you from on high. And I'm going to open the question. I should say I'm going to open the answer with the question. Twin Mom says, "Hello, Lady C. I was reading that the Queen of Montecito isn't on the media schedule for the Invictus Games. Personally, she doesn't belong there, I say, because I'm a disabled US Air Force veteran, and the last thing we want speaking to us is a person who only cares for the publicity. Also, I wanted to know if you are as disgusted by Kanye West and his wife's disgusting behavior in Venice and the wedding they crashed. I guess it's true some people think that bad publicity is still good publicity, no matter how skanky they are. I must say I love your videos as I watch them every day. My husband says it's an addiction, ha ha ha. Much love to you and your fur babies and best wishes to Treasure. I hope he gets well soon and God bless from America." As I mentioned his name, he perked up and he's looking at us. So, okay, Treasure. Good boysy. He's cuddling with me. I'll take the least significant part of the question first, and then I'll get on to the really juicy, meaty bits. Kanye West, well, and his wife, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about Kanye West. I really don't. He's not from my world. Our paths will never cross. I don't listen to the sort of music he does. I think he's evidently, well, I'm informed, I should put it like this, that he's evidently very mentally unwell. And I think, therefore, we need to cut him a bit of slack in that direction. That doesn't mean we need to approve of the things he will be doing. And if what he did in public in Venice is accurately reported upon, big no. It has to be said, though, it goes to show to what extent Vogue, Vanity Fair, the Met Gala, and all of those supposedly once prestigious society magazines and affairs, the depths to which they have sunk when you have Kim Kardashian and Kanye West as guests of honor. I just make that point for what it's worth. I don't think it's ever pretty viewing when you see people who are mentally ill disporting themselves in unsavory ways. And let's leave it at that. Because quite frankly, I don't think, in my opinion, he's important enough for me to waste too much breath upon. So let us get to somebody who is more of a morality tale, if only because he should know better. And he is not acknowledgedly mentally ill, although I think he is. So the Queen of Montecito isn't on the media schedule. No, she's not. And I would have addressed this issue day before yesterday, but I wanted to do an episode dedicated to the Queen. So I didn't, but I got news from on high, shall we say. Some very grand friends of mine, and I can't say what rank they are because I don't want to give away my source. They were at a party on the continent with some very high-ranking German officials. And this is what they told me. Meghan demanded a helicopter to transport her from the airport to the hotel. Then each time she visits the stadium, from the hotel to the stadium. She also wanted special linens in her room, her suite actually, which also had to be redecorated in shades of sand, camel, and off-white to her specifications. And they needed to get the color right, and if they didn't get the color right, they would have to do it again. The linen had to be a certain ply. The cotton sheets had to be a certain ply. The towels had to have a certain fluff. Why she just doesn't go for Porto linen is beyond me, but most likely she's never heard of it, so don't tell her about it. Because that's uniformly superb linen. Anyway, she also, according to what my friends were told, was demanding a clothing allowance. She demanded that she be clothed in certain couture garments. And evidently, how true this is, I cannot vouch for, and I say that for legal reasons. But evidently, the last time her clothing, etc., was well into six figures. And they told her no. They said, absolutely not. Also, she demanded that her HRH be used when she was being introduced as co-moderator and when she was closing. Her co-moderator was going to be an Eritrean actress called Hadnet Tesfaye or Tesfaye, I don't know how it's pronounced. And they just told her no. They said, forget it. Now, what's really interesting about all of this is the Ministry of Defense then issued a document with only Hadnet Tesfaye or Tesfaye's name on it, no Meghan. And there is talk. I need to be very careful what I say. There is talk that Meghan is going to try to use all of this to her advantage. How she's going to use it is open to speculation at the moment. Well, I could suggest she's going to have a miscarriage having had a pregnancy. I mean, why not stick to tried and true methods? They worked with Mr. Justice Warby, and maybe they generate an awful lot of excitement this time. Poor Megsy baby. 42 and lost the baby that she was so looking forward to, even though she'd only ever wanted 2 children. But since a third was going to be foisted upon her, she was going to be noble and have it. And now the stress of all of these negotiations has led her to miscarry or something else. Let's see what she comes up with. Or let's see if she shows up at the 99th hour. Because evidently there is talk that this could be what she has up her sleeve. So she's yet again created a problem which is totally uncalled for, totally unnecessary, totally undesirable, totally unacceptable, and she's then going to spin it so that somehow she ends up getting publicity, because there will now be the speculation, will she or won't she be going to Invictus? Maybe she'll climb down and go. Maybe she'll go and she'll allow them to pick her up in a chauffeur-driven car, as long as there are outriders. After all, we need to remember that it is Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, a woman of class and beauty, and taste and sophistication. So that's my latest little snippet from on high for us to savor. Let's see what happens, and let's see when this is picked up by the mainstream press. Yes, Treasure. Treasure's coming back for more cuddles. Okay, here we go. Okay, yes, Mutty loves you too. Jack Star says, it's a no-win situation, isn't it? The colour thing. They need Lady Louise to find a Nigerian. My dear, Lady Davina Windsor, the Duke of Gloucester's daughter, found herself a very hunky Maori builder. They're divorced now, but that's right. The marriage was agreed upon. The Queen signed off on it. They got married. They have children. Will anything else ever bring this farce to an end? I can think of 1 or 2 things, but I can't mention them. They would be tasteless. So I don't think Lady Louise finding a Nigerian is going to be the answer. Now, maybe if Prince George gets himself a nice yardy gal picked from Jamaica, that would be another thing altogether. We don't need to orchestrate, do we? Nobody needs to orchestrate. The fact of the matter is, although Meghan, I forgot to tell you, a piece of the information I was told is that Hadnet Tesfaye is a woman of colour. Oh, and I nearly forgot. There's a lot of disquiet amongst the veterans as to why an Eritrean refugee is co-presenting when she has no link to the veterans, evidently. And there is disquiet that Meghan and Harry are exporting the colour card to Germany when there are plenty of co-presenters who have a link to the veterans. So why, the question has been asked in certain quarters, is this presenter roped in when there are so many other presenters who would be more appropriate? And as more than one person has said to me, they can think of no better presenter for the Invictus Games than Simon Weston, who is a genuine war hero, genuinely, disabled, and genuinely lives with pain and his disability, and has raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for charity. And why isn't someone like him being roped in? And there is disquiet in certain quarters that the Invictus Games is not only being turned into the Harry and Meghan pony show, but that they are now using the colour card quite unnecessarily, because what does colour have to do with the Invictus Games? Surely if they wanted someone of colour who was a veteran or related to a veteran, they could have got someone, but they didn't. They're really very transparent, some people think. Christine Wilson says, "Dear Lady C, I can't understand why no one is picking up on Harry's very odd words in his speech at the Well Child Award ceremony. He said his grandmother will be very pleased that he is with the children and not with her. He's telling young children his grandmother will be very pleased that he's not dead, several exclamation marks. What a very odd thing to say in any public speech, and especially a speech to young children. Do you think this was a message to his family, that they lost his grandmother, and if they don't treat him better and give him what he wants, they will lose him too? Or is he just being his normal, sad and twisted self? Regards, Christine Wilson." Well, Christine Wilson, I have listened very closely to what he said, and your question has struck a big note with me, because in my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, I made the point that his family was concerned that a denouement could be that Harry does something, shall we say, precipitate and tragic. I'm going to quote what he said. "As you also probably know, she would have been he's speaking obviously about the Queen. As you also probably know, she would have been the first person to insist that I still come to be with you all instead of going to her. Here with you tonight instead of going to her, catch in the throat, then throat clearing with a funny smile, which is fleetingly triumphant grimace. And that's precisely why I know exactly 1 year on that she is looking down on all of us tonight, happy we're together, continuing to spotlight such an incredible community. There are other interpretations that could, at a stretch, be put upon what Harry said. But I think, Christine Wilson, you have hit the nail on the head. I think as Harry is pressing people's buttons. He was always emotional, but he's learned from the past mistress of manipulation and suggestiveness how to get his point across and hoover up pity at the same time as he is instilling fear and terror in people's hearts, or at least nervousness. There is no other interpretation to put upon his words, because speeches like that are not off the cuff. They are written. Every single word is very carefully considered. It's also a ploy to get sympathy and for people like you, Christine Wilson, to figure out what he's saying and then bringing it to light, as we are now doing, which will give it legs, and hopefully it will run into his family's backyard and cause consternation. And they'll think, oh, we'd better do something, except they're not going to do anything. They're heartily sick and tired of Harry's games and Meghan's games. They're not going to do anything. So, Harry, feel free to do whatever you think is best. I understand that is basically where it's got to be at, because nobody is going to be allowing Harry to manipulate them the way he has allowed Meghan to manipulate him, and the way she, by extension, would be manipulating them. I hope that clears up that one. Sid Mountaineer says, and he's referring to a previous episode, 604. Here's something Harry wrote in his book that matches exactly what Lady C is talking about when Harry was referring to Doria, Meghan, and the press. And it's pathetic big block capitals. He wrote that he was wild with rage, quote unquote, which turned to guilt, quotes, and, quotes, I'd infected Meg and her mother with my contagion, otherwise known as my life. I wonder who manipulated him into being wild with rage, Sid Mountaineer wants to know, and feeling guilt, and believing that I'd infected Meg and her mother with my contagion, otherwise known as my life. End of quotes, question mark. It wasn't Meghan alone who incited all of that rage and guilt. Sid Mountaineer, I don't know what you mean. I'm just Uriah Heep. I'm just innocent. demure, just like my daughter, proud, confident, yoga teacher who, for extended periods, was absent from my daughter's life. Anyway, to continue. They have him right where they want him. Controlled, obedient, feeling guilty, thinking he infected them. And another important clue that he's been abused by a narcissist, in this case, 2 narcissists. Don't know about 2 narcissists, but certainly two opportunists and 2 players and 2 race baiters, if their words and deeds are anything to go by, is that he views himself so low self-esteem, calling his life a contagion. If Princess Diana was alive, she would have snatched him away from Meghan and Doria a long time ago, and she would not have been afraid to tell the world exactly what she thought about it all. Then, at 1805, something else triggers Sid Mountaineer. Yes, I think they purposely had Harry stand there looking bored and upset, then hugging Meghan to cause both sides to argue over whether he was happy or not. Harry is in on this. So this obviously is referring to them at Beyonce. Then at 29:43, he says, he comments on what I'm saying. And Meghan knows this. She blamed the palace of doing this very thing on the Netflix doc. He's referring to the press manipulation. That Meghan and Harry and their WME people and advisors have been on about. They have been bombarding us recently with diversionary tactics and deflection techniques to keep Harry and Meghan in the news, to bury the fact that Invictus has been a flop, to keep the buzzwords going so that when I'm not very technological, so you'll have to bear with me. When you put in things, you don't get the flop, you get Beyonce, you get Tyler Perry. They're piggybacking on everybody and everything. And it's actually a brilliant diversionary technique. And it's working. It's working because people are talking about other things. So they have distracted us from their failure and presenting us with new talking points. Anyway, she claimed that she was used by the palace to draw attention away from negative news about the royals. Meghan, Harry, and her friend Lucy admitted this on the Netflix doc. And that's how the press works. She literally said this when falsely accusing the royal family and palace of it. Meghan said, and I quote, "You would just see it play out like a story about someone in the family would pop up for a minute and they'd go," quotes, "we've got to make that go away," end of quotes. But there's real estate on a website homepage. Meghan rarely does speak in non sequiturs, end of quotes. And again, quotes from about Meghan. There's real estate there on a newspaper front cover and something has to be filled in there about someone royal, end of quotes. Her friend Lucy said, so they would feed stories on her, whether they were true or not, to avoid other less favourable stories being printed, end of quotes. What she's doing now and back then with the press is exactly what she claimed the palace did to her. Projection much. She stuck her big foot in her mouth back then during the Netflix doc, revealing that she knows how the press works, yet expects the public to believe her stunts are now authentic and organic. Well, Sid Mountaineer, very well spotted. I think it's very important that we understand what's going on and we don't just buy the lie and we just don't buy the propaganda. I mean, this isn't Nazi Germany circa 1938 or 42. We don't need to buy the lies of Joseph Goebbels' propagandist equivalents. Meghan and Harry are deliberately not only projecting themselves by deflection, but they are raining on everyone else's parade. They're trying to eclipse the whole of the royal family by flooding the media with stories about themselves. In the last few days, because it's been the Queen's the first anniversary of her death, all the other royals have been, well, not all, but many of them have been covered. For instance, the King and Queen Camilla at Crathie Kirk with his first cousin, Lady Sarah Chatto, her husband Daniel, her two hunky sons, Charles's other first cousin, David Snowdon, the present Earl of Snowdon, his daughter, the gorgeous-looking Margarita Armstrong-Jones. Then you've had William and Catherine in Wales. And so, there's been coverage of the others, but Harry and Meghan have made sure that since they know everybody is ready and waiting for royal coverage, they have made sure they flooded the media with coverage all about themselves. She goes to Beyonce again. She's photographed sitting in the box with Ted Sarandos or whatever his name is, and his wife, who is a very successful woman of colour. And of course, they are going to be ostensibly supportive of Meghan because they are hoping to make money out of Meghan. And they might yet succeed also. Maybe there's some cooperation along the lines of birds of a feather flocking together, which I have nothing against, by the way, as long as it's not used in a cynical way. But they have been deliberately courting publicity, which of course they affect to dislike. So you have Meghan with Tyler Perry in the VIP area, and she's attaching herself to names. So when you Google or whatever you do, Kim Kardashian, Jeff Bezos, Kris Jenner, Tyler Perry, the two women that she was photographed with doing her Tig look. Sorry, we've got to get the angle right. So natural. I never pose, ever, never. I'm just natural. I just know where the camera light is, and I follow it the way a pig follows the gutter. Then, of course, there was Harry's football visit. So they have everybody coming and going. Is the marriage in trouble? Are they a double act? Is the marriage not in trouble? Are they duping us? Blah, blah, blah. Are they separate operators? What's really going on? Let's see if they can convert this into real money. So far they haven't. Had they conducted themselves with dignity and behaved loyally and royally, or maybe I should say royally and loyally, they would have been able to make at least as much money as they have made so far, and they would have a future of respectability and prosperity and respect. Will they have that? They certainly don't at the moment. And with their antics, I think people are mightily sick and tired of them and their antics. But there is a ghoulish fascination for people who bob up like perennial bad pennies. I think we're really waiting for that train to hurtle off the tracks, fly into the sky, crash into the canyon, and go. The day no more. You know, every great play, every great drama has a beginning, a middle, a climax, and an end. Let's see what happens there. Patricia Woski says, "Good morning, Lady C. I hope you're doing well today. Victoria Ward at the Telegraph is reporting that Amid Scabies, I don't know who Amid Scabies is, I know who Amid Scabies is. That itch. No wonder Marat was actually quite pleased to be dispatched by Charlotte Corday. The itch, scabies, is such an itch. Anyway, the Telegraph is reporting that Amid Scabies is setting his sights on Prince William in his upcoming book, Endgame, Inside the Royal Family and the Monarchy's Fight for Survival. Do you know how Amid Scabies collects his intel on the royal family? How does he know a damn thing about the inner workings of Prince William? Scooby is creepy, isn't he? What do you know about his research methods? And who would talk to him about the royals? I can't imagine anyone in the firm giving him the time of day, can you? I know they don't. I also know that no supporter of the monarchy speaks to Amid Scabies. Insofar as I'm aware, he was recently stood down as one of the publication's royal editors. He's not known as the chief propagandist for nothing. Where does he get his information from? Definitely not from royal sources. That is any proper royal. Definitely not from William and Catherine's camp, not from Charles and Camilla's camp, not from Edward and Sophie's camp, not from the York camp. Where does he get his information from? Montecito, here we come! And it doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't even have to be truthful. It just has to be dramatic and histrionic. And it has to be as artificial as Meghan and Amid Scabies are. Purely plastic. Of course, it's going to be sensational, it's going to be dramatic, it's going to be histrionic, and it's going to be full of victimhood and racism. Oh, how people of colour suffer. Meghan has suffered so greatly that she wasn't even allowed to marry Harry. They're so racist that they refuse to allow her to marry Harry. Everything we've seen in the last several years has been a figment of our imaginations, along the plot lines of Dynasty, the television series. Do you remember where George's younger brother woke up from a coma several years down the line, and he hadn't really died at all, and everything that everybody had looked at was a dream? I mean, Dynasty's right. Nobody's talking to him. But they don't need to talk to him. Amid Scabies doesn't need to speak the truth. He's never been limited by it. Remember, he had Harry and Meghan, according to him, helped with funding freedom and finding freebies until it didn't suit them, at which point he gave a statement to the court attesting to the fact and affirming that he had got no help from them. Then Jason Knopf actually gave a statement confirming that he had helped Harry and Meghan at their behest, passing on information to Amid Scabies. So, right there we know that they're all liars. It's been proven. Julia Getman says, "Dear Lady C, Amid Scabies," and again she uses a name I don't recognise, something about Omid Scobie. "Amid Scabies has released the chapter titles of his soon-to-be-released book. It's indicative of an attack on the monarchy, and again with the unconscious bias racism claims. What are your thoughts? For reference, here are the chapters. 1, The Queen and Her Piper." Well, Elizabeth II's final days. The Queen and Her Piper, Elizabeth II's final days. Bit of a non sequitur right there, I would have thought, but unless, of course, he's trying to suggest something untoward, which I don't think even he would have the temerity to do. Chapter 2, Shaky Ground. The Queen is dead. The monarchy faces trouble. It certainly does. It faces trouble from Amid Scabies, Harry and Meghan. But is its popularity dented? Not at all. The monarchy's popularity is today exactly what it was a year ago. In fact, before a year ago. It has not declined. The popularity hasn't declined. So, the monarchy faces trouble. Trouble is spelled Montecito. It's spelled Amid Scabies. It's spelled Harry and Meghan. And they are facing the problem very well. But let's continue. Number 3. Oh God, I have this. King Charles's premiere. Well, of course, he's going to try to pour scorn on the whole subject. I do wish he'd pour anti-scabies cream over himself instead. 4. Remembrances of things past. The ongoing campaign to make the royals great again. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say there. At least he will presumably have remembrances that are factual as opposed to Meghan post factual remembrances. 5. Baggage, the lingering trials of King Charles. He has an awful lot to do with them, and he has an awful lot of knowledge about them, because he is one of the architects of them. He is the mouthpiece. 6. The fall of Prince Andrew, scandal, shame, and silencing Jane Doe. Oh dear, water really does seek its own level, and more than that I'm not going to say at this point. 7. Race and royals, institutional bigotry and denial. Well, of course, because they're not admitting to being racist. They're going to be accused of denialism. And the fact that they are not racist cannot be proven amid scabies by the fact that they allowed a marriage between Prince Harry and a well-acknowledged woman of colour. And it wasn't the first marriage between a member of the royal family and a person of colour. That's definitely a sign of racism and bigotry. And institutional bigotry as well. I think they ought to give Amid Scabies the job of master of the household. The problem is, what's going to happen when they pack away the silver and take out the plastic? Are they going to try to slice up his face and put it on the table as cutlery? I just leave you with that rather unappealing thought. 8. Gloves on. Prince William, heir to the throne. I'm glad he knows that Prince William knows how to box. I'm waiting for him to issue the knockout blow, but I don't think he's going to be doing it right yet, and not to Amid Scabies. And 9. Gloves off. Prince Harry, man on a mission. Yes, Harry's on a mission. The mission is to destroy the royal family, damage the Commonwealth, elevate his earning capacity and that of his wives. And last but not least, to shut down freedom of the press on both sides of the Atlantic. And he's going to have his equally twisted sidekick, his Goebbels, helping him do it. Tanya Fabregas says, "Good evening, Lady C. You look lovely as usual. Thank you. It makes a nice change to be on a different subject rather than the two grifters. What do you think about this morning losing out at the National Television Awards ceremony to another category? And do you think that Caroline McCall will either step down or be sacked? This morning needs to be axed, in my opinion. Don't know why it's still airing, to be honest. It's still airing because they're still trying to find a way of making something that was a great success in the past work in the future." Caroline McCall is very adept at hanging on. She evidently has fingers that have superglue oozing out of them. It's impossible, evidently, to get her hands off the parapet, even though she's hanging by her fingers. So, I'm delighted that they lost. I'd like to see a total revamp of the show, and I'd like to see them get rid of Holly, that Dolly Holly. She was complicit over a period of many years with Philip Schofield. She backed him up. I can tell you to my personal cost and in my own experience. She had his back. Then when she thought it was going to be in her favour, she thought, ooh, I'll just plunge in the KNIFE, figuratively speaking. And she washed her hands of him. But it doesn't seem to have done her very much good, does it? She was booed at the National Television Awards. And I think she ought to face the facts. There are lessons to be learned, chief of which is when you don't have sufficient character to stand up to people who are being taken to people who are taking advantage, or to stand up to a person who is taking advantage of people in your presence. But you are complicit and you try to cover up for them, as you did with me. Do you remember Holly the Dolly? You didn't understand the connection between good mental health and truthfulness. And you didn't understand that you can't have good mental health if you don't have integrity. And you were struggling to understand when I was saying that you needed these things, otherwise you couldn't have good mental health. And I had to ask you if you didn't understand what integrity was, and you clearly were pretending you didn't. Well, you knew what integrity was because on a daily basis you were disabusing it. You were showing us that even though you must have known what it was, you were ignoring it. Well, if you're getting your comeuppance, all I can say is goody gumdrops, as children would say. User UK2 UN4 etc. says, did Prince Philip have affairs, mistresses, as the crowd alluded to? It is my considered opinion, and I share this opinion with Giles Brandreth, that Prince Philip was a great flirt. He loved women, but he did not have mistresses. Several of his supposed mistresses were customarily entertained by the Queen. It really is a bit much to believe that the Queen was going to be customarily entertaining a series of these women. I know some of them. They're friends of mine or friends of mine, or indeed married to a cousin of mine. And I think it is beyond belief that anybody could actually think that the Queen would have been quite so accommodating if there had been anything untoward going on. And I know as a fact that she used to go for lunch at Broadlands when Penny Mountbatten was entertaining Prince Philip for the weekends. People seem to forget that Penny Mountbatten was the granddaughter-in-law of his uncle. And I'm not mentioning any other names because the general public don't know of all of the names, and I'm not prepared to mention any of them. But I'm sorry, I just don't see that it's possible. Yes, he was a flirt. I mean, every time he saw any good-looking girl, he'd say things like, "How, you're looking good tonight," or something. You know, he was flirtatious. I was flirtatious. we were brought up in a world where flirtatiousness was attractive, it was desirable, but you didn't necessarily go that step further. Some people did, but many, like Prince Philip and me, we were not goers, we were showers. It stayed in the drawing room or around the dining table. It never led to anything more concrete. Well, that doesn't mean that you didn't have close personal friends with members of the other sex. I mean, for instance, Prince Philip had a very close and loving relationship for many years with Sacha Abercorn. She was the Duchess of Abercorn. She died rather young of cancer. She was actually the daughter of a cousin of his, because her mother, Gina Verner, Lady Zia Verner's daughter, and Lady Zia was Prince... Come on. Was Grand Duke Michael of Russia's daughter with Countess Torby. And Gina was a great friend of Prince Philip's, and she was mooted as a possible bride and didn't want it, nor did he. They were friends from childhood. And then he was a great friend as well of her daughter. And they shared much in common, including spiritual quests, the study of Jung, the question of what is the purpose of life, etc., etc. So, you can have a very close friendship with a member of the opposite sex without actually having anything carnal happen. And no, I do not believe that he had mistresses and affairs. I think he had the female equivalent of Cavaliere Servante, which was a concept that had been prevalent in courts in various ways, shapes and forms, European courts especially, from medieval times. It's actually in my book. It's all in my book, The Queen's Marriage. If you really want to go into any depth, please read the book. Okay? And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you need me to address of interest to you. Thank you. God bless. And if you have truly enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and Godspeed.